I think we're going to a Bitcoin standard, and I think Bitcoin, like the florin, is going to be the new hard money. The, from the 1400s to the 20, the late 2000s, we're now going to be into this hard money era. And so what are the interface? Well, they could be high, right? They could be very high for certain high-risk projects. And the new merchant banks, right? The new form of banking that is going to emerge once we get through to the other side, where Bitcoin is the main asset, is the main form of money, right? The new money will be lent. Bitcoin will be lent out as Bitcoin. It will get a yield in Bitcoin. And it's going to go into things such as quantum computing, artificial intelligence, nanotech, all kinds of other things that we can't even dream of. So are we going to still need loans? Yes, we are going to need loans. We're going to have capital projects that are going to need big loans. How are the loans going to be done? Well, we're going to have assets that are going to be pooled together. We're going to have people lend money to banks on a fixed term. Those banks are going to make loans just like the banks did in the early America, just like, in the 1870s, the Mellon Bank, for example, led to the building of Alcoa and Gulf Oil, right? And Andrew Mellon became chairman of the Treasury for a very long period of time, right through the 20s, the Roaring 20s. Andrew Mellon was the chairman of the Treasury. And so I see us going back to something very similar to that on a Bitcoin standard. So that's kind of my view. And so essentially what I'm trying to point out here is that hard money does not mean zero interest. And I know it hurts your brain to think through this stuff. It's sort of like a very hard chess problem. When you look at it, you're like, there can't be a solution. Well, there is a solution. And the solution is that you're going to lend money. And even though in the totality, there's still just 21 million coins, individual lenders can have thriving businesses because they choose to lend money to the right people who are going to be able to multiply that money in Bitcoin terms efficiently, right? And so I do think that lending is going to play a very key role in all of this. Where are we going with this Bitcoin? What does banking look like? Just kind of like I was talking about that chapter. What does inflation look like in a Bitcoin world? There's question after question after question. So there's a lot of questions here. And so we sort of framed this discussion in 21 chapters, right? So we have this book is about really the next 20 years. And we sort of see Bitcoin hitting a $10 million price point in 20 years. Basically the way we sort of see it is, first of all, the power law, which is sort of the statistical behavior of Bitcoin so far, just purely from a mathematical standpoint. And not just in terms of price, but also in terms of addresses, hash rate, a bunch of different aspects, the power law versus gold and other things, power laws versus exponentials, volatility reduction, all these kind of somewhat complicated mathematical ideas, but we want to sort of really get to the essence of what the stats are telling us about Bitcoin. That's chapter 1, is about the money printer. I mean, how much is this money printer going? Where is it going? How's the US doing versus Europe versus Japan versus China? How is M3 versus M2 versus M1 versus M0 base money? How is Bitcoin relative to that? And how is this money expansion increasing over time? Part of this particular video was, inspired by Joe Burnett put out a post today about, what does the world look like at Bitcoin 10 million? And he's like, well, let's assume that no other assets go up in price. And I was like, well, okay, that's a terrible assumption, Joe. He's like, well, it'll probably look a lot like it will today. Well, we don't think so. We do definitely think that the world in 20 years is going to be very different from the world today. Very, very different. And, it is true that the amount of fiat out there is so large that Bitcoin will not be a majority of the assets of the world in 20 years. But there is an amazing fit between the S&P and an exponential function, right? So if you look at the exponential model, it fits the S&P very well. It fits gold pretty well, not great, much worse. The fit's much worse, right? Because gold right now has been trending, but there was an enormous period of time where gold was trending down, right? So, the idea that gold is trending at a constant rate is just not statistically valid, right?
On a really long scale, if you smooth it out, it is.
But it's not, the R square is still very low. So the R squared of gold to the R squared of the S&P over the last 15 years has been exceptionally good. Okay, it's 97% on an exponential.
On exponential.
Yeah. And also money supply is very good. So money supply itself, okay, is a very high correlation to just a pure exponential. That's
money
it.
Supply is exponential. SPX is exponential.
And real estate prices.
Real estate is exponential.
And gold. So everything, most things are exponential. They're growing at sort of like somewhere in the 7 to 10% range per year. If you looked, where do you expect gold to be growing at 10 years from now? 7 to 10%. Where do you expect real estate to be growing from 10 years from now? 7 to 10%. Maybe a little less, maybe it's 7, maybe it's 6, but it's somewhere in those areas. Where do we think Bitcoin is? No. Bitcoin, you got to look at a power law chart. So this is where I think, I'm going to diverge with a lot of people like Tom Young who say, well, the power law is just, the past and we're going to break it. No, we're not going to break it. It seems very unlikely that we break it. It's going to take a lot to break it to the upside.
It would take a long time to know if it's broken too. We were talking about this morning. But
yeah.
Let's say Bitcoin shot up to $1 million tomorrow. Okay, or in the next few months, let's be realistic. In the next few months, let's say Bitcoin shot to $1 million. Now, is the power law broken? Well, kind of, but if the price comes crashing back down, then the average over time can still favor the power law.
Okay, so this is the B1M.io, and so
why don't we go through this a little bit? Let's
go through this a little bit.
Can you clear your cache?
First thing you'll look at, these are the most important numbers. What's the price of Bitcoin? 115,858. This is from CoinGecko. Pretty much real time.
Pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not all the prices are 100% real time accurate. But that one is.
This model price.
So that model price is the trend line price that you can calculate based on the slope here. So this slope is giving you this model.
By the way, I want to check this number to make sure it's updating every single day. I'm not 100% sure it is.
No, it is.
Is it?
Yeah.
Because I've seen it like a couple of days ago. It was 375 too.
Oh, we can go and look at it on the chart maybe.
Yeah.
So if you click power law, that takes you to this page.
Okay, let's go here. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know you could get there this way.
Yeah, it's kind of. I wish there was like a date picker actually.
We need a date picker.
Probably is good to have a date picker. But what you can see here is that this is a really good power law chart. Although I kind of like looking at it in log because it's the straight line. But
yeah,
every date.
So where are we today?
We're up here, kind of in this range.
So 9.
This is 925. So it'll be 925. It'll be 104,620. So here's the upper. So let's talk about these lines for a minute. Just right now, the power law is about somewhere in there between those two.
103.
So you can see here is that
by the end of the month,
it's going to be 104.
104 and change.
Now it doesn't mean the Bitcoin price is going to be 104. Right. The Bitcoin price is between the green and red line, which is actually quite a big range, but it's one standard deviation above.
Down. It's two.
One down or two above. Yeah, one down or two above. So you take the number of the power law price today and divide it by half. That gives you lower, and the upper is twice that. So the Bitcoin price can be somewhere between 2 times the power law trend and 50%. Now these are not numbers we made up. These are based on historical movements, and actually it makes sense if you think about it. If the Bitcoin price were double what it is, there's more pressure for people to sell because they're unrealized gains.
Triple because
triple.
Triple.
It really is triple. It's really a 3x line. Right?
So it's either
Sorry, it's
you
3x.
either go,
I forgot we did 3x on this one.
yeah, it's 3x because
That's kind of bubble territory.
it's bubble territory, and most
It
of
can
the
go
time-
higher than 3x. It has.
It has, but these numbers are coming down, right?
Right.
So
So
the
we want to
3x
kind
is
of.
kind of, it really is kind of.
You actually want to imagine these bands getting tighter
yeah,
as it goes on. So it's like, yeah, it's kind of
And-
interesting way to think about it.
yeah. We even have models saying it should go down to 2x, 20 years from now. Right now it's 3x. Before it was 4x.
And part of that's because the more valuable it becomes, the more buying and selling you need to do to move the price at all.
I think the other thing is there's sort of a reflexivity. I think people, even if they don't understand the power law, they're understanding that there is a bubble, and they're coming back to this. And I think even our pushing the power law will actually impact the Bitcoin. Then we have our projections.
So this is the future price prediction of 2025, 2030. You can calculate these numbers yourself. 2035, 2045.
So we're looking at the trend line itself is kind of getting us close, well above 1 million by 2035, and almost at 10 million by 2045, right?
Yeah. Just the trend line.
Just the trend line.
And then we have the 1 million. So when could, based on this chart, which you can go and explore that we looked at, what's the earliest, or when's the trend line hit 1 million, and what's the earliest 1 million? Meaning at 3x the trend line, that green band. So the earliest green band for Bitcoin to hit 1 million looks like August 2029,
Which is only
just
four years away. Yeah.
Right.
We could potentially see it 4 years away.
So
this is
the power law would not be broken at all if Bitcoin hit 1 million in the next 4 years. People always ask things like, well, what about Bitcoin valued in gold? Well, guess what? That also follows.
Now, this is a really interesting chart. Let's just stay here a second. Right now, 1 Bitcoin is about 32 ounces of gold. But the model, if you look at the model, it says it should be almost 58 ounces of gold. So actually, the gold multiplier is actually pretty low. It's almost very much at those historical lows.
It's not exactly the price of gold, but it's the tether gold price on here.
Yeah, that's pretty good enough. Good enough.
So that's what I figured out.
Okay, good.
Then, so anyways, yeah. So this is looking at the value of Bitcoin in gold terms.
Right. So going out to trend, 1 Bitcoin is 4,000 ounces of gold. So you may not want to be putting your money into something unless you already have 4,000 ounces of gold. 4,000 ounces is a lot of gold. Okay. At 4,000 ounces is
Well, kind of what this chart
200
says.
kilograms worth of gold.
What
That's
this chart
200
says is you
kilograms.
should sell your gold and buy Bitcoin at this price.
Yes.
That's
100%.
Now here's Bitcoin as it relates to the M2 money supply.
Right on track. One for one.
One for one, exactly modeled out. I mean, it's amazing. That is amazing. That's just circumstantial that's looking like that right now,
Yeah.
because there's a 94% chance that it will be on the trend line,
Yeah.
right?
It's
So it's a
very
very
high
high correlation to this, but this gives you the
BTC
slope
gold
of
was
this
also
line.
pretty high though. Look at the price of BTC gold, 95.
It's actually higher.
Yeah, and the S&P. This is also another one. The BTC relative to S&P is a power curve.
It's undervalued too.
And it's other value. So S&P is pulled ahead a little bit.
But so what does this mean that Bitcoin's a power law against gold, the M2 money supply, and the S&P 500?